Welcome back. Today, we're bringing some serious energy to a topic that literally affects every single one of us, whether we realize it or not. We're talking about the invisible architecture of our daily working lives. I mean, think about it. Organizational management is exactly like constructing a building. You can have the absolute most expensive materials, the brightest engineers, and the most visionary founders, but if that foundational blueprint is flawed, yeah, the whole structure is going to collapse right under its own weight. So I want you to ask yourself this right now. Why do some companies run like well-oiled machines while others are just total chaos? Have you ever worked somewhere where getting a simple approval felt like navigating a maze blindfolded, while at another job everything just clicked? The difference isn't magic, and it rarely comes down to just having better people. The real-world stakes of organizational design literally dictate whether a company thrives or just barely survives. Here's our roadmap for this explainer. We're covering the blueprint of organization, types of organizational structures, line and staff dynamics, the art of delegation, and finally, where does power reside? All right, let's jump straight into section 1, the blueprint of organizing. Before we can build our skyscraper, we've got to understand what laying the foundation actually entails. So the crucial point is this. Organizing is the deliberate, systematic integration of human and physical resources to accomplish a goal. It's not just throwing a bunch of people into a room and hoping for the best. It requires dividing tasks into jobs, grouping those activities logically, and setting up a unified system of operation. It is a highly conscious, deliberate act. I actually love this 1938 quote from Barnard because it hits the nail right on the head of what an organization really is. Consciously coordinated activities. Let me give you a brilliant example. If two students see a broken down car on the side of the road and push it to help out the driver, well, they haven't formed an organization. That's just a one-time favor. But if those same two students consciously coordinate their efforts and decide to push broken cars for a living, setting shared goals and dividing up the labor, boom, they've just built an organization. But what happens when that coordination goes off the rails? A badly designed blueprint has severe structural deficiencies. You don't just get a slightly annoying workplace, you get catastrophic failures. We're talking low motivation and morale, mostly because people just don't know what their jobs actually are. We see late and inappropriate decisions because the right information isn't reaching the right people. This leads directly to a lack of coordination, a really poor response to external changes in the market, and ultimately, rising costs. This invisible blueprint matters to absolutely everyone, from the CEO down to the newest intern. Moving right along to Section 2, Types of Organizational Structures. Now that our foundation is set, let's look at the different floor plans a company can choose from. An organization's structure totally evolves as it grows from a small one-room shop into a massive corporate skyscraper. The most basic floor plan is the functional structure. This is where you group jobs by similar economic activities. Think of your standard departments: production, marketing, finance, human resources. This is highly efficient and incredibly logical, especially for smaller organizations that are maybe just making a single product. You can immediately see why this is so popular, right? The functional structure builds incredible skill specialization and really reduces the duplication of resources. Everyone is an absolute expert in their specific silo. But there are downsides. When a problem spans across multiple functions, the response is agonizingly slow. Why? Because the decision-making is so centralized that it bottlenecks at the very top of the hierarchy. People start focusing entirely on their own department's goals rather than the overarching goals of the whole organization. So when a company inevitably outgrows that functional floor plan, it shifts to a divisional structure. Instead of grouping by job function, you group by similarity of products, geographic location, or customer needs. Imagine a massive company having one division for cosmetics, one for textiles, and another for electronics. Or maybe they divide it geographically, like Eastern region, Central region, and Western region. This structure is honestly fascinating. The huge advantage is that you gain incredible adaptability. You can tailor your focus to specific regions, adapt to local differences, and push responsibility down to lower levels. But here is the friction. You absolutely pay for it in redundancy. You end up duplicating functions everywhere. Every single division now needs its own accounting team, its own purchasing team, and man, it also fosters fierce internal politics when it comes time to allocate corporate resources. For organizations that need the best of both worlds, we have the matrix structure. This is the ultimate hybrid floor plan. It superimposes temporary, horizontal project divisions directly on top of the traditional vertical functional hierarchy. It allows for highly flexible use of resources and super fast responses to change. But it comes with a major catch. It effectively gives employees two bosses, a functional boss and a project boss. This totally violates the traditional principle of unity of command and can definitely heighten the prospects for interpersonal conflicts.
That brings us to Section 3, Line and Staff Dynamics.
Speaking of interpersonal conflicts, let's look at the internal relationships within our building. Think of this as the load-bearing walls and the electrical wiring of the company working together. On one side, we have line authority. These are the people directly responsible for achieving the core goals of the organization. The managers and operative workers right on the ground. They are the load-bearing walls. On the other side, we have staff authority. These are the specialists like legal advisors, researchers, or quality control experts. They provide specialized advice and support services. It is often said that the staff thinks while the line acts. But bringing the thinkers and the doers together inevitably breeds workplace drama. Just look at this friction. The line personnel often complain that the staff's advice is way too academic and totally out of touch with reality, or that the staff swoops in to steal the credit when a project succeeds. Meanwhile, the staff complains that the line managers are generally ignorant, they resist new ideas, and simply lack the knowledge to translate expert advice into action. It's a tale as old as time, rooted entirely in how their roles are structurally designed. All right, Section 4, the art of delegation. To manage all these people, we have to master delegation. Delegation is kind of like handing over the keys to a specific room in our building so someone else can manage it while you focus on the bigger picture. The process is a strict procedural checklist. First, determine the expected results. Second, assign the tasks. Third, delegate the authority needed to accomplish those tasks. And fourth, hold the person accountable. But listen closely to this critical rule. You can delegate authority, but you can never, ever delegate your ultimate responsibility. If your subordinate fails, you as the manager are still held responsible for that failure. No exceptions. Yet delegation fails all the time. Why? Welcome to the delegation trap. Managers often suffer from egocentricity. You know, that I can do it better myself fallacy. They fear losing control or being blamed for a subordinate's mistake. But what about the other side? Let me ask you, have you ever hesitated to take on a new project or a promotion because you feared it would just mean crushing work overload with absolutely no extra pay? Subordinates often dodge delegated authority because they fear criticism for mistakes, they lack self-confidence, or they simply want to avoid the risks. These academic barriers are deeply, deeply personal to our daily careers.
Finally, Section 5, Where does power reside?
Let's look at how power is distributed throughout the organizational architecture. The numbers 5 to 7 represent the traditional span of control. Historically, it's recommended that a single manager should effectively supervise a maximum of 5 to 7 direct subordinates. If the span of control is narrow, you get a tall organization with many, many layers of management. If it's wide, say 10 to 15 highly skilled subordinates under one single manager, you get a flat organization, which is far more cost-effective because, well, you have way fewer supervisors on the payroll. This builds directly into our final structural concept, centralization versus decentralization. On one hand, centralization keeps decision-making power concentrated tightly at the very top. It's highly uniform and great for small companies, but it's agonizingly slow and inflexible in a rapidly changing market. On the other hand, decentralization pushes authority down the ladder. It motivates lower-level managers and really speeds up local decision-making, though it does risk increasing overhead costs. The reality is, as organizations grow larger and way more complex, they must inherently decentralize to survive. We've covered the foundational definitions, the structures, the friction of line and staff, the delegation traps, and the flow of power. So, I leave you with this final thought to take back to your desk. Look at your own workplace. Is its blueprint built to support your success, or was it inherently designed for chaos? Think about it. Thanks for tuning into this explainer, and we'll catch you next time.